Folks, yesterday you heard the Philadelphia Eagles side of things, and now you're hearing the Kansas City Chiefs side of things as Hustle Rama Andrew Paterson of Winnipeg Sports Talk joins me. But that's the first leading question I wanted to ask is because with us Canadians, it's a lot different of like how you get your sports fandom. There's not like the team to root for. And I know a lot of people, or I assume in that Winnipeg area, would gravitate towards, a Lions, Vikings, or Packers just because of geography. But what led you to the Kansas City Chiefs?
It's a funny story. I was working for the Manitoba Moose in, I want to say, 1998. And we went down for a weekend series, Moose against the Kansas City Blades. This is just after the Jets had left the NHL. And we had some connections within the hockey club that said, well, if you guys are coming down for the game, you should go and check out the Chiefs. They're playing on Sunday. We're like, oh, that sounds amazing. And ended up meeting some people at the hockey game that said, well, hey, if you're coming to the football game, we'll show you how we do it in KC. We get the best tailgate around. So come here, meet us at 8 a.m. And I went there and had, honestly, like it was a come to Jesus moment sort of thing. Like as great as the game was, the tailgating and how things go in KC was even better. And they weren't particularly good at that point. But I sort of fell in love with the team, the vibe around the game. The guy that I met at that game ended up becoming one of my best friends still to this day. So I get down usually twice a year for Chiefs games. I've been spoiled since the Mahomes era to be at, 2 or 3 AFC championship games. I was at the Texans game earlier this year. I was going to go to the AFC championship, but I had another trip that sort of overlapped, so I went earlier. But I've been spoiled with the ability to get to games, and then after kind of toughing it through about 15 years of being a Chiefs fan where they weren't particularly good, we're now in the Mahomes and Andy Reid era, and it's we still pinch ourselves at times, going, I can't believe that we got this guy and we're back in the big game again.
So I really like how you ended that there because I feel like there's a lot of Chiefs fans that are like, hey, just like king of the hill, king on top, 2 years in a row, looking to make it 3 in about 72 hours from now. But the fact that you're just so humble with it and it's the not taking it for granted portion is a real shining light to a lot of the stuff you see online with some Chiefs fans where it's always trying to like, I don't want to say engagement bait, but there's just a lot of different vibes. But I like how you framed it as like,
Yeah.
hey, I started when this team was just, they weren't that echelon class. And then eventually there was like you said, the 2000s and early 2010s was not particularly the best time to be a fan of the team. Andy Reid comes along. They're a successful playoff team. And then, you know what? They make a trade with the Bills. And ever since then, it's just probably been, I have to say, probably euphoria for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's been unbelievable. I mean, if you remember, rolling out to a Chiefs game and your starting quarterback was Brody Croyle, you'll be pretty damn thankful that you got 15 behind center. I mean, listen, and I get it. I mean, it was the same way with the Patriots. They were so good for so long. I mean, you could have 24, 25-year-old Patriot fans that that never remembered not being a Super Bowl favorite, and not having Tom Brady. So, I mean, listen, I'm not naive enough to think that this will last forever. But when you remember a 1-15 season or 2-14 and drafting first overall and taking a Eric Fisher because there were no quarterbacks available, but the thing about it is, the other side is that even as a fan, even if they had always been good, there's being good, and then there's being all-time great, which is what Patrick Mahomes is and what this team has been. So it is important, in my opinion, to keep a little bit of humility about it, because we are incredibly blessed right now. But to the organization's credit, everyone that they brought in has bought in. They're proud to be Chiefs. They're proud to be part of the Chiefs kingdom. And as we heard this week at Media Day, there's a lot, with success comes a lot of haters, a lot of criticism. And I think that just makes that kingdom that much more, and the team that much more together. So listen, if you're a Chiefs fan, even if you're a new one, I mean, listen, there's a lot of people that have come over that weren't even football fans. And then Taylor Swift came on the scene and they're getting into it. I mean, I welcome it all. It's a great sport. It's a great team. It's a very despite what some people will gaslight you and tell you. It's a group of a bunch of guys that are champions right now. And tell you what is it's pretty crazy and damn exciting to know that they could etch their names in the NFL history book, unlike any team has ever done before, if they can beat the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday.
Exactly. This is also a great passing the torch moment, because I don't know if you've seen the logo over my left shoulder, but I'm one of those fans. I'm not 24, 25. I'm 31, but you're right. I never, like, I became a fan when I was like 7 or 8, when they were getting good.
Yeah.
So I never got
2001, their first Super Bowl. I mean,
Yep.
that's totally how that happens. I mean, listen, I mean, and it is funny that we talk about, I mean, there's all this bull about the refs and everything like that. I will tell you, I went to the AFC Championship game, Brady versus Manning at Arrowhead was it January of 2019?
Yep.
And two things stand out to me from that game. Well, first of all, the way the Patriots were way up. I think it was 21-3, if I'm not mistaken.
It was 14-0 at the half. I remember that.
Yeah, Mahomes just, I mean,
he came to life in the second
truly
half.
proving himself that he was just such a special player, going toe-to-toe. For all the talks about getting calls, the Chris Jones roughing the passer on Tom Brady in that game, which I believe was on a big third down, maybe the worst roughing the passer call in NFL history. And then, listen, and this is no fault of the Patriots, but for Dee Ford to line up offside and ruin what would have been a game-ending pick that would have sent the Chiefs to the Super Bowl was something that stuck in my craw for a long time. I mean, I think when you've been in enough of these big games playing against the best teams, you realize that there are going to be some calls that you don't like. They're going to be the ones, and the great teams are the ones that don't dwell on it. They move past it. And listen, there's also something to be said for getting the benefit of the doubt after you've been so great for so long. And I'm not going to ignore that, but the Chiefs aren't winning any of these games because of the refs. They're winning because they're the most prepared, well-coached, best quarterback team in the National Football League for a number of years, and they'll have the chance to prove it against a hell of a defense and a hell of a team in Philadelphia in the Super Bowl on Sunday in New Orleans.
So my thing with the whole refs situation is, and I've been a big proponent of this for a while, is they need to make those guys full time, because most of them work a Monday to Friday, and then it's just like, oh, hey, on the weekend, yeah, I'm gonna fly to. I live in, like, for example, Gene Steratore. I know he works for CBS now, but him and his brother, I think, run a plumbing business outside of Pittsburgh. So it's like, hey, I'm going to go to Pittsburgh, and then this Sunday, I'm going to be in Denver doing a Broncos-Chiefs game. So that's where I think that comes from. And also for the whole fixed argument, I'm sorry, but there would be, and I say this jokingly, but there would be people getting Joe Pesci from Goodfellas being led into an empty room with a tarp on the ground if something like that were to be happening, because that's one of those things that, like, I just think the NFL is too incapable of fixing it to that extent. That's why I make the joke of, like, oh, if people were to find out, people be getting killed. But
listen,
I think
anyone that thinks that the refs are at all involved in anything is an absolute moron. I mean, first of all, what would be the benefit to it? Like, realize, folks, that the NFL is 32 teams with 32 owners. You'd think, like, oh, you know what would be really great? Let's start a dynasty in the Midwest in one of the smallest markets in the league, and let's do everything we can to keep that thing going. I mean, other people that will, I mean, there's so many stupid people online right now. Yeah, like, and ever since Taylor Swift's been here, they've got all the calls. I mean, folks,
I think it's just a coincidence.
Just be just accept the fact that, sometimes you won't get every call. And here's the thing, even if I go back to the Bills game, I mean, there's lots of people that are saying, oh, Josh Allen got the first down. Well, did he? I mean, I thought James Cook said it best. He's like, all that ref talk is absolute BS. It's on us. You cannot put your season into the hands of a ref that's trying to determine whether a ball was an inch forward or an inch back. I mean, you need to go out and do it and get it done. Much like the Chiefs did when they needed a first down to win that football game. They got it to Piron. He went around and did it. So I don't know. It's a nauseating conversation. I can't believe they've actually had to talk about it the way they have. And it's been embarrassing for some legitimate mainstream media to kind of dive in to this engagement bait and rage farming with it all. But when it comes all down to it, I think we've got the two best teams playing for the Lombardi Trophy. So much at stake for both of these organizations, and it should be a hell of a game. And as I look, I mean, basically it's a pick 'em right now, a 1-point spread. This is exactly what you want, a great matchup between two awesome teams.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's all, like, as a football fan I can ask for, is just an awesome game with two just awesome teams. That's all you really want Sunday to cap off the year before. Well, I know for some people it's like, oh, 6 months without football. No. Football's back in. I know there's the UFL, but football's back in 3 months, folks. For us,
Oh
football's
yeah, I
back
mean
in
we've
3
got
months.
CFL free agency next week to get to right out of the game, and
Oh, yeah.
then get ready for another great season of 3-down football. And the CFL is on the come up too. I mean, I know around where you're at, some people may be a little slow to sort of pick up on that, but we got the great news yesterday. The salary cap's gone up $400,000.
Yep.
That actually dates back to the 22 season. So things are trajecting in a very positive way for the CFL. The ratings for the Canadian Football League remain amazing, and we know how important television numbers are when it comes to revenue right now. And hopefully a few of the markets could just inject a little bit more fun, a little bit more youth to the games, which I think would be really helpful long term, like that's happened here in Winnipeg.
Yep.
And, but I know I'm very bullish on the future of the Canadian Football League right now. And as much as that Monday after the Super Bowl is the most depressing day of the year, you're exactly right. We're not too far removed from getting the 3-down game back. And then obviously come next September, we'll be back at it looking for another great fantasy football season and a season of NFL football.
Oh, it's like the perfect combination right now. Like, we're talking CFL, NFL, fantasy football. But one other thing but like the little cherry on top of it, if you had to look at a bet you really like for Sunday, I'm not asking for a money line and over. Is there a player, or because like we're gonna do a 2-part question? Is there a bet of a player or a prop bet you're really looking at that you think people should go for? And can you give me an X factor for the Chiefs that's not number 15? Because that's just shooting it straight. Like, who's a player you think that could really come to life Sunday night?
Well, here I'll answer the second part first, and then we can kind of dive into some of the props. The one thing that continues to amaze me even now is the brilliance of Andy Reid, their scheming, their play calling based on opponent and based on what they've done recently. And
yes,
when you look at the Chiefs offense, it can look so different from week to week. And I mean, you heard from the Bills. The Bills were talking afterwards about seeing formations and schemes that they had not seen once all season long. And that's why, listen, I love Nick Wright, and he'll puff his chest and say these games have just been practice for the Chiefs all year long. There is an element of truth to that, in that they know when they can win a football game, they're out there to win, and they keep a lot of their tricks in their bag to pull out when they need it the most. And we saw some of that with the running formations with Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game against the Bills. I say that because Mahomes distributes the ball as well as anybody in the league and getting everybody involved. I mean, I would be surprised if we don't see 7, maybe 8 different Chiefs catch passes in the Super Bowl. And because of that, I look at the receiving totals in this game, and I think there is some real value and opportunity in some of the shorter numbers on guys further down the depth chart.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins has been a non-factor in the last couple of games. He's still a world-class player and a guy that I think that if the Eagles are off the scent of that, his total for the game is 11.5 yards. I mean, we're talking about basically 1 catch for D-Hop right now. I will probably be on that. I mean, the worthy number is 54.5. He's, I think, going to be a big part of it. And Kelsey's is 61. And I think that's a little lower because he had a quieter game against Buffalo. But if you look historically and this year, one thing that the Eagles have not done well is cover tight ends. And there's nobody that finds a way to get open more than that. So, I mean, I think there's some possibilities of some guys to really break out beyond what they expect. I am kind of looking at Hollywood Brown, and I think back to those previous 2 games, especially early in the Texans game. He hasn't been in the lineup. The first thing they do is hit him on a slant, and then they hit him again. Like, I'm not sure you'll see any Chiefs receiver flirt with 100 yards, but I think you'll see a number of guys with 4 or 5 catches that'll put them in an area that probably takes them over. And as far as kind of my favorite bets and props, kind of taking away from that well-balanced Chiefs offense, and again, consider the source. I am on Kansas City and will be, but I think about the way that the Chiefs handled the Ravens running game. The Ravens running game last season in the playoffs. Like, you know what the threat of the Philadelphia Eagles is, and it starts with Saquon Barkley. And if you don't stop the run, you're not winning the football game. He's got a massive total. 111.5 is his total for rushing. I'll be taking the under on that. However, on the other side of that, I'll be taking the over on his receiving yards. It's only 12.5. And I think because of the way Spags is going to challenge them to beat them with the arm of Jalen Hurts as opposed to running Saquon Barkley, I think it's highly likely that we'll see them utilize the passing game to get the ball in Barkley's hands a few times when they're looking at a stacked box. So I think Barkley will get to that number. And on the other side of things, Kareem Hunt's receiving total is only 6.5 yards. I think Kareem Hunt, similarly, because I think they will really challenge the Chiefs running wise, much like Mahomes has done all year long. Tons of passes behind the line of scrimmage. Running backs very much a part of that. I don't think we're going to see a ton of Isaiah Pacheco. I think Hunt has become the more trustworthy guy. So not necessarily hitting the rushing over, but I think there's some real value on the really short numbers on receiving yards for both of the running backs in this game.
So you stole the words right out of my mouth. One of my favorite touchdown bets for Sunday. Because think about it. Every other receiver had a big game in the AFC Championship. Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Juju. D-Hop's a guy that's just sitting there, and plus 500 is too good not to notice. I just wanted to throw that out there. The other one I have too is I like Kelsey for 60 yards and a touchdown just because I noticed a weird trend with him. He had a touchdown at 54. He didn't have a touchdown against Tampa. He did have a touchdown against the Eagles 2 years ago. No touchdown last year. So it's kind of like an on again, off again pattern with him. I just wanted to point that out.
Well, this could be, listen, I wouldn't be surprised if this is his final game as well. And I know he said, hey, he's still 11 to play and all that, but with where he's at in his life, if they win this game and he becomes a 4-time champ and one of the leaders and team captains on the historic team that did the first ever three-peat, with everything that he's got going in his life outside of football, I wouldn't at all be surprised if this is it. I mean, you can't imagine a better way to go out than on top with 3 straight Super Bowls. And, oh, yeah, you're going to move on and be an entertainment star and probably marry Taylor Swift. I mean, if there's one guy that's got it all, it's Travis Kelce. But because of all that, I think that he will be incredibly focused on having a massive game. And you know who Mahomes loves to go to in crunch time. Hell, all the time if he's open, and Philly hasn't done a great job. Like, Vic Fangio better have a good plan for Travis Kelce. But again, if that happens, that opens up other opportunities for other guys on that Chiefs. And between Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, they find a way to get those guys the football.
Yeah, that's my exact logic there. I was going to ask you too about Kelce because he also got a contract last offseason. I don't think people really pay attention to, but way back in the day when people would work at a job for 25, 50 years, you get the gold watch and hey, you're retired. That's it. He got that kind of contract from the Hunt family, I think right around the draft time last year, where it was, he has an option for this coming season as well for 25, but it's basically a, hey, thank you for your service. So I've been saying this. I think regardless if they win or lose, he does retire. I just think because even if they don't get it done, I just think it's, hey, what else do I have left to prove in football? I have the podcast. I have an acting career. I'm probably going to marry the world's most famous pop star one day, like he said. So I just don't think there's anything else left for him to prove in that sense.
You know what? The only thing I'll say, and I've been with you, if you'd asked me this throughout the season, I kind of would have said if I had to bet one side or the other, I think this is it. I mean, he is 36. He's still playing at a really, really high level picking the spots a little bit more this year than before. But the one thing that kind of has given me pause on that, I don't know if you heard him at Super Bowl Media Day, but he talked about how much he loves playing and loves being a Chief and how great this team is. And he certainly didn't, if you just took him at face value of what he said, you would have thought that he's for sure playing next year. So that maybe nudged me a little bit more into the middle. But I'm glad we won't have to worry about that until Monday and see what happens in the game first, which I know he'll be a central figure in.
I just don't think he's going to come out and say, hey, this is, it's it. I think it'll be like what Peyton Manning did, for example, where it's like, oh, it could happen. And then like we get a press conference like in a few weeks from now where it's like what his brother did last year as well. I don't have to ask you who's going to win because you already said it. But for me, myself, this is actually my last show before the big game Sunday night. And I'm going to give my pick because I made every other person who's come on here give their pick. And I'm going to say this. I have the same feeling as the AFC Championship where I was like, something's telling me Buffalo's going to win, but winning in the playoffs in the Super Bowl is not about winning the game. It's about winning the moments. And there is one man on this earth who plays football, who knows how to do it better than anyone else. I think we're getting a three-peat. I think the Kansas City Chiefs win this game and they win it close because I think I'm going to say the same thing as I said for the AFC Championship. It's either the Chiefs win by 2 to 3, 4 points, or the Eagles win by at least 7 to 10. I think it's one of those games. If it's a close Eagles victory, it's because Jalen Hurts did something that no one expects, because everyone expects 15 to get it done when it matters most. And he also did not have to be put on Superman's cape to win the AFC Championship as well, which, in my opinion, is something very, very scary that the Eagles should be worried about Sunday night.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I always like to say it, and when I'm giving it to my friends that are Bills fans or Bengals fans or whatever, he is the final boss. And when and listen, I don't mean to stick it to, I'm sure you have a lot of Bills fans in your area that are listening to this. I mean, it's no shame on Buffalo. There's never been a player that is more clutch, maybe in any sport, than Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the numbers in playoff history of him trailing or tied in the fourth quarter and the results of those games, he's 7 for 7. He's 7 for 7 coming back and winning. Like he does seem at times inevitable. And, but it's so much more than that. I mean, listen, there's 2 really good defenses. Even if you want to give the nod on defense to Philly, which I think is fair based on what they've done this year, Chiefs defense is still really, really good. And when it comes down to it, I mean, if you really want to simplify things, in most games, when it comes to professional football, tell me who the coaches are, tell me who the quarterbacks are, and I'll be riding with the better unit. And Andy Reid all day over Nick Sirianni, and Patrick Mahomes all day over literally anyone they could throw against him. And that's why I think you're making the right choice, Griff.
Well, Andrew, I'm going to give you a second to plug your network away and everything else. So if people want to follow you and want to know a little bit more about Winnipeg sports,
we're a daily. I mean, I was the drive host on TSN here in Winnipeg for over 10 years until in 21 they shut our station down, like they did kind of in many spots over across the country. And we continue to deliver kind of the top sports show, focusing more on the Winnipeg Jets and hockey, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, lots of NFL talk on Winnipeg Sports Talk every day. If you want to check out the podcast, just put in Winnipeg Sports Talk. But you can find us on YouTube. We're live at 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern, Monday to Friday. For those of you that like betting, I chop it up with Dustin Nielsen, who you'll know is the voice more of the West for TSN in the Canadian Football League. We do a betting show called The Lock Shop, where we talk the big sports stories, but then get into some picks. And that's noon Central, 1 Eastern on Edmonton Sports Talk. So check out their YouTube channel and podcast. And then for CFL fans, we'll be getting going again with CFL 110, myself and Jeff Hamilton, coming up as we get closer to the season. Probably crank out something post-free agency, and that's a weekly show as well. But Winnipeg Sports Talk, and on all of our social channels at Sports Talk WPG, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all that. And you can find me at all those same socials at Hustler Rama.
Love it. I love it. Well, anyway, Andrew, enjoy the game Sunday. I said this to my Eagles person last night because a friend of mine who covers the Argos, Chris, and I'm going to say it to you. Best man, best team win. We'll see if in about, like I said, 72 hours, if you guys are doing the three-peat. But I think at the end of the day, if the Chiefs aren't the team that's hoisting the Lombardi trophy, I don't think you can look at this year and the last few years as a disappointment. You know, it's, hey, we've won 2 in a row. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, I know you don't want to be having those conversations. I just have to do my duty as host and bring it up.
Yeah. Hey, man, it's time to make history for what will be remembered as maybe the greatest team ever if they can get it done. But a big task in front of them Sunday in New Orleans, the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm with you. May the best team win. I got a hunch I know who it is. Have a great one, and thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you very much, Andrew. And guys, episode 347 is in the bag. Myself, NFL content, CFL content will all be coming up in the next few weeks as we gear towards another season of football and the off season where, you know what, football talk just gets even more fun. Have a good night, everyone. Enjoy the Super Bowl.